Walking through the woods, Alice came upon the strangest scene. There was a table set out under a tree, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was lying on top of the table, fast asleep.
No room, no room!
They cried when they saw Alice coming.
But there's plenty of room,
said Alice, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table.
Have some wine,
The March Hare said in an encouraging tone.
I don't see any wine.
There isn't any.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it.
It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited.
I didn't know it was your table. It's late for a great many more than 3.
Your hair wants cutting,
said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech.
You should learn not to make personal remarks. It's very rude.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that.
Do you mean you think you can find the answer to it?
Exactly so.
Then you should say what you mean.
I do. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know.
Not the same thing a bit. Why, you might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see.
You might just as well say that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like.
You might just as well say,
added the Dormouse, who seemed to be talking in his sleep.
that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe.
It is the same thing with you.
And here the conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which wasn't much.
What day of the month is it?
He had taken his watch out of his pocket.
The 4th.
2 days wrong. I told you, Hare, the watch didn't want buttering.
It was the best butter.
Of course. But some crumbs must have gotten in as well. You shouldn't have used the bread knife.
The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily, and then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again.
But it was the best butter.
Alice had been looking on with some curiosity.
What a funny watch. It tells the day of the month, and it doesn't tell what o'clock it is.
Why should it? Does your watch tell you what year it is?
Of course not.
Alice felt dreadfully puzzled.
The Dormouse is sleeping again.
The Hatter poured a little hot tea upon the Dormouse's nose, who shook its head impatiently and said, without opening its eyes,
Of course. Just what I was going to remark myself.
Have you guessed the riddle yet?
No, I give up. What's the answer?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Nor I.
I think you might do something better with the time than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers.
If you knew time, you wouldn't call him in it.
I don't know what you mean.
Of course you don't. I dare say you never even spoke to Time.
Perhaps not.
Time and I had a quarrel last March at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts. I had to sing for the Queen. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. You know the song, perhaps?
I've heard something like it.
It goes on in that way, you know. Up above the world so high, like a tea tray in the sky.
Here the Dormouse shook itself and began singing in its sleep.
Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
And went on so long that they had to pinch it to make it stop.
Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse when the Queen yelled out, He's murdering time. Off with his head.
How dreadfully savage.
Ever since that, time won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now.
Oh, is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?
Yes, that's it. It's always tea time.
Finally, the hare spoke up.
Suppose we change the subject. I'm getting tired of this. I wrote the young lady tells us a story.
I'm afraid I don't know one.
Well, the Dormouse shall. Wake up, Dormouse.
The hatter and the hare pinched it until it woke up.
I wasn't asleep. I heard every word you fellows were saying.
Tell us a story.
Yes, please do.
And be quick about it before you fall asleep again.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little sisters, and their names were Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well.
What do they eat?
Treacle.
They couldn't have done that, you know. That's just syrup. They'd have been ill.
So they were very ill.
Alice tried a little to fancy herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much.
But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Take some more tea, dear.
I've had nothing yet, so I can't take more.
You mean you can't take less? It's very easy to take more than nothing.
Nobody asked your opinion.
Now who's the one making personal remarks?
Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself to some tea and bread and butter and turned to the Dormouse and repeated her question.
Why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Because it was a treacle well, and that's what they ate.
There's no such thing.
If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself.
No, please go on. I won't interrupt you again.
Indeed. So these 3 little sisters were learning to draw, you know.
What did they draw?
The Dormouse went on yawning and rubbing its eyes, for it was getting very sleepy.
They were learning to draw everything that begins with an M.
But why with an M?
Why not?
The Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time and was going off into a doze. The hatter woke it up again with more hot tea.
Oh yes, everything that begins with an M, such as mousetraps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of muchness?
Alice was very much confused.
Are you really asking me? I don't think...
Then you shouldn't talk.
This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep again instantly, and neither of the other 2 took the least notice of Alice going. She looked back once or twice, half hoping that they would call after her. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into the teapot.
At any rate, I'll never go there again. It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life.
And on she went.